Good day, I'm Dr. T. Welcome to my office and the changing lighting conditions. So I'm recording a couple videos today, and the last video definitely had some interesting lighting. So let's see how this one goes. Read a book, and that is How Learning Works by Susan A. Ambrose et al. And so this is, as the subtitle says, 7 research-based principles for smart teaching. Basically, this is an introduction to teaching for probably newer faculty. As someone who's been teaching for over a decade, most of the content here I found was interesting. Would have been nice to learn this sooner, but I kind of figured out most of this on my own or from going to conferences, etc. So, obviously this isn't the first professional development I've done in over a decade. That said, it was a nice, densely packed one. I wish I would have had this when I was younger, back in maybe 2011 or something. This would have been really nice. Also, a few things to rethink about and a few things to kind of reevaluate the way I've been doing. So it's always nice to get a few other opinions. So about the 7 different topics they go over, I'm just going to kind of give you a glimpse through the table of content. I want to do like a full video series on this one to go kind of a deeper dive. Maybe later. There's a lot here, and I started taking notes. I was going to do like a whole concept map on it, etc. And just like, oh, this is so much work. Let me just read it, get this video out, and then do that stuff maybe over a break or something. Because, life. It's been a while since I published a video. So there's a reason. Okay, so first chapter, and each chapter is kind of set up with like a couple of stories that are presumably true stories where the names and faces have been changed to protect the innocent kind of thing, or maybe they're just made up based on narratives that they've heard. So these might be compilations. I'm not entirely sure. They may have said, I may just not have been paying attention. And so generally it's a couple of stories, then kind of like what's going on here, what's the research say, and then how you can adapt to this or use this to your advantage, or basically what should you do. This book is a little bit prescriptive in spots, and to be honest, that's perfectly fine. That's kind of its goal, is to give you better ideas on teaching. So yeah, no problem there. First chapter, how does students' prior knowledge affect their learning? So basically this is kind of talking about misconceptions. They're proposing that you, try and get a feeling of what your students know and don't know already. What their misconceptions are, and if they've got misconceptions, you need to attack those things. Now, certain misconceptions are more harmful than others, Obviously, in chemistry, I run into a ton. I kind of look at some of the K-12 standards and I'm just like, dude, the octet rule's not real. Those are orbitals. And so this is a good thing to do. Yes, I totally agree. Next one, how do students organize knowledge? I've been using concept maps for years. I actually kind of stopped because I've been hearing some negative press. These guys are all for their concept maps. They like the concept maps. It actually made me reevaluate how I grade them. So instead of having just basically like, okay, did you answer the course questions? All my concept maps are like, here's a list of 50 questions you should get from this module. It may be only 8, depends on the class, but you get the idea. Here's a module, here's a bunch of questions. You should be able to answer all these by the time you're done. And the concept map over the module is the answer to all the questions that are done. But in like a spider web configuration. And so that's how I've been grading. Like, did you answer the questions? And they bring up a point of how a novice is very lightly linked, and looks like the light is changing, as I said earlier. Novices have very lightly linked ideas, and that they kind of have to go through long stretches of ideas that are not cross-linked. So if you got a polymer, it's a nice straight chain polymer, nothing fancy going on. Whereas an expert has tons and tons of cross-linking. So it's, you've got this great little web of ideas, a tangled mess of them. And so that one way you can actually evaluate student understanding and assess how well they're doing is how cross-linked their concept maps are. So if their concept maps are basically an overglorified sentence, then they clearly don't know what they're doing. They're parroting. Polly want a cracker. Does Polly know what a cracker is? Does Polly understand that Polly is Polly? They probably don't know what they're doing. If they've got a little bit of fractal nature going on here, They've got some ideas forking. Okay, they're starting to get some ideas. It maybe looks like a tree or a starburst or something, but it's not really showing a lot of interconnectivity. It's showing a little bit, but not a lot. Okay, they're starting to learn. Oh, this is a dense, tangled web of ideas. Okay, they start having an idea what's going on. Now, of course, everything's imperfect. Concept map's not really what's in their head. There's no way to know what's actually in their head. So, it's imperfect, but it's an interesting idea. I changed up my rubric. I got some point values for did you answer the questions right, and then another set of point values for how interconnected the ideas are. Did the student make connections that I would expect them to make? Did they make a lot of good connections? Did they make silly connections? That kind of stuff. Okay, so that one actually really changed something. Thankfully, I was reading this. I started the book back in August, the time I could change my rubrics. I've actually been really delayed in getting this video out. I've read the book quite a while ago. Okay, what factors motivate students to learn? And so this is ideas, grades aren't everything. Grades are a lot. Grades aren't everything. There's personal mastery, etc. This is one of those chapters I need to reread. Actually, several of the chapters coming up are ones I'm going to need to reread before I make that video series on this, which coming in, God only knows when. Next up, what kinds of practice feedback enhance learning? Okay, this was one of those kind of like, okay, I need to think about homework. This is kind of the comment. Practice does not make perfect. Practice makes permanent. If you have students do a bunch of practice problems and they don't know if they're right or wrong, then why they bother doing it? It didn't really gain anything. This is a strong argument for a lot of the online homework-based systems where they can put in an answer, they get feedback, right, wrong, etc. Generally, I've had mixed views on the online homework systems because one, they're kind of expensive, and two, the feedback is usually kind of lackluster. Let's just be honest, a lot of them have not improved since I started teaching in 2010. Yeah, guys, I got a love-hate with relationship with y'all. The homework system's like, oh man, I want to like y'all, but... And so this, obviously if you're going to do a writing assignment, you need to give them feedback. And my immediate thought is like, I have like 200 students. Not really 200 students. It's in the hundreds though. Higher hundreds. So, 150, 160, etc. If I'm giving them feedback on writing assignments, like that's a lot of feedback to give. Kind of logistics. Obviously, if you've got small classes, this is going to work a lot better. This is really kind of a highlight of why small classes are such a big deal. If you've got a whole swarm of students in a class, the amount of feedback you can give, unless you're using AI, is going to be pretty lousy. If you've got, say, 20 students in a class, and so you've got maybe 4 classes of 20 students, that's 180, sorry, that's 80. I'm used to thinking over 100. That's 80 students. That's still a decent number, but it's a lot more manageable than if you've got, say, 180 students to provide feedback for. Let's see. So, if you're going to have practice, it needs feedback. They need this rapid cycle, which, once again, the online homework systems do give. I got a love-hate relationship with these things. There's a reason I love online homework systems. There's also reasons I don't like them. And the next one, why do student development and course climate matter for student learning? Obviously, the course culture, what's going on in the climate, how discussions go, et cetera, matter. This is another one of those chapters which I need to reread. And then the last one is on students being self-directed learners. And this gets more into kind of the nature of learning growth and how, if the student doesn't know anything about a topic, you need to provide students with a lot of scaffolding. They need to be able to grow in an area and focus on one thing at a time. If you overwhelm them with too much that they need to be able to do, then they don't actually learn anything if they're trying to learn too much at once. Yeah, this is, once again, the logistics thing. I've only got 16 weeks and I've got a lot to teach them and only so many hours in the day, kind of thing. So definitely some good content. I do recommend everyone, if you're teaching, especially if you're a new instructor, go take a read. It is pretty good. Some of the suggestions, once again, and they do make some comments on ways to deal with larger courses, etc. But especially as a lecturer with a fairly large number of students, all I have to say is some of these is like, I would love to. I don't know how, but I would love to. I'd love to spend 20 minutes giving feedback on an essay. If I'm doing 100 essays, that's not happening. At least it's not happening in a timely fashion by any means. So with that said, once again, check it out. Good book. See you in later videos.